All right, guys, good afternoon. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Wednesday. So we're past the middle of the week, and another, I would say, market continuation. Despite a couple of headlines, just like we got, what was it? Was it yesterday where it kind of jolted the market a little bit with the vaccine headlines, and we have quickly kind of moved on from that. And today there was a little hiccup with, talking about China securities and whether or not they are going to actually decide to delist those. I'll just give you my quick thoughts on that. I think that's going to be very difficult to do. I think they're just, my opinion, and I don't know what's going to happen, of course, but I think they're just kind of rattling the cages a little bit. One of the things that they want to, or that I read was that they basically want companies to sign off that they're not being controlled by the government. So that's one of the stipulations. So how far is this going to go? We really don't know how far they're going to push it. Could there be repercussions? It kind of feels very similar to the environment that we were, a year, 2 years ago with the trade war. Remember before? That seems like a lifetime ago, but so the moral here is you kind of have to watch your exposure a little bit to Chinese names. They've been acting so well, but I don't think that they even understand, like in terms of the Senate and the administration, what has to be done. You're going to have to strip all these names out of all these ETFs. It's a huge process to delist these names. So it could just be, what do they call it, rattling the sabers, or so I don't know, but it seems that's going to be a very difficult process to do, to get these names out, if that's what they decide to do. Now, I think that the VIX is telling us something, right? So the VIX jumped up on the headlines because, of course, the algos, but we're just not seeing this in the VIX in terms of, if there was something, if there was real danger that something was going on, you would think that the VIX would have jumped back above 30 today. So that's kind of my reading for this. Now, everything else that's going on in the market. Let's look at the performance for the for the week. But the market shook that off. That headline was, a little bit after lunchtime today. And you could see the participation today. You had small caps up 3%. So all in all, pretty healthy. The Qs were up another 2% for the day. SPY right in the middle of that, or actually underperformed a little compared to, relative speaking, still up 1.7%. So very, very healthy in terms of market breadth. So could this change? If I don't have the put call ratios for the day, but they've been acting. We saw them a couple days ago, and they were very, very. Uh, Sentiment is running very, very hot. The put call ratios were very low. That usually means that from a contrarian standpoint indicates that that's a problem, right? When everybody is kind of bullish, or there won't be as many incremental buyers. We also talked about this, I think, in yesterday's video. We talked about when sentiment is extremely bullish, it shouldn't take much for the market to go down. However, the market just kind of continues to chug on. So what do you do in this environment when we're getting a lot of call activity? Names like Facebook today. Disney went nuts for a little while because they're talking about when they're going to reopen. Probably that's going to happen, even though I saw a headline after, close to the end of the day that it's not going to happen. But look at the volume on this breakout in Facebook. And it hopped over this Virgin point of control. We talked about this in last night's member webinar. But, this is what you want to see. You want to see price get through it. And you have to remind yourself that some of these areas, because to put things in perspective, Facebook, I kind of think should be up here. I've kind of said I'm not like a big Facebook, the app bull, but they have Instagram, and you have to remember what kind of environment we're in. So it kind of makes sense while this name is moving up higher. The catalyst was Zuckerberg was speaking yesterday, And this is the environment that we're in. Stocks are just going to run for now. When does this stop? Everybody wants to know, right? What's causing this? Was there a headline, that's causing this? Like, I got a lot of questions, like, why is this going on today, right? In our trading room, I don't have the answers for any of that. We know that the Fed is continuing to pump money in. Do I think, like for me, I've talked about the Qs. The Qs have filled this gap, which a lot of people have been looking at. So this gap has been filled, and there's this virgin point of control. So we've been looking at this virgin point of control while we've been lower for a couple weeks. Yes, this is a great place that for me, I'm going to be taking targets, and I'm going to be trading a little bit more conservatively. But let's face it, I've been trading kind of conservatively for the last couple weeks. And I'm just going to kind of continue to kind of ride the trend. Yes, I will be very cognizant when that Q's virgin point of control gets taken out. But what if we just hop right over it, like that Facebook chart? So I do think, and I've said this now, the Citigroup Sentiment Index, which I went over yesterday, is running very hot. So you kind of have to take this to say, hey, this is great, but every day you should be like, thinking about your risk. Like, I'm every day like concerned once we start to really move. What I'm doing kind of to help manage the situation is I'm rolling out a lot of my exposure. I continue to lock in profits and roll out. I did that with an Amazon trade today. Right? I had, for some reason, I had a call spread in for next week. It was actually a screw up, but I could just kind of give you examples, right? Because no one knows how no one has a crystal ball. There was a question as well. Like I said, I got a lot of questions today about this, but hey, do you think that we could run further for the rest of the week? Do you think that this is too far, all kinds of things. And listen, nobody has the answers to this stuff. Yes, sentiment is running hot. So what does that tell me to do? To take profits when I can, and try not to really get caught too much. So every day, as we experience these nice rallies, I'm doing things like locking profits in, and I'm forcing targets in some things if I have to, and I'm substituting. Right? I had one name, so I'll give you a couple examples. So I talked about Amazon first, right? So I had Amazon next week call spread. So I got out of this trade, right? I'm not pushing it, trying to get the home run, and I'm not going to hold this to next week, even though it's way in value. It just has too much time value on it. So I jumped out of that. I took out $10 of that on that trade. Right, and that was the second target that I hit, right, and then I went into, I said I'm going to roll this because I think like Amazon was just behaving, great today, so I got into another call spread, this time one that expires this week, which is what I was supposed to do in the first place, but that's another situation. Listen, we all make some mistakes sometimes, but I got into another one and I took a target at 410, and I said, hey, it's got two, obviously Thursday and Friday. But hey, it's at 420 already. I'm happy with making a little bit of money on top of a little bit of money. Could I get, if Amazon goes up tomorrow, could I get $7 or $8 for that spread? I probably, I could. But I'm putting it in the hands of, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And if we happen to open up lower, then there's going to be plenty of things to do there too. But I just really don't want to. It tells me with market sentiment running this hot, don't be super greedy. You could participate, but take a profit. Like, even I put on this, I really don't like to add trades into this type of strength, right? I always want to be a net seller when we've got, a couple days of rally like this. Just a heads up, my strategy for today, I basically try to keep the same level of new trades. So if I add something, I try to take something off, and I do substitutions, like a lot, because one thing like I do not want to do right now is accumulate positions. And if you're in the trading room and you're watching all the activity that we are with, just where they're just pounding Facebook calls over and over and over, or Disney calls for an hour, you can kind of get caught up in the moment. So you have to just be cognizant of what your risk is. And if I'm putting something on at this point, I've got to take something off. Because if not, what happens is you continue to accumulate positions, and then when the market does decide to take a breather or a little bit of a pullback, you're caught with all these positions on. So what I do is just a little bit of a dance, right? And I even put some trades on this morning So that's Amazon, right? And me taking so that's a good example. Uh, but also, like, I got the first setup that I was looking at today was for Team. Now, Team didn't do much. So, and same thing, we were talking about Workday as a possible run into earnings. But I just saw the writing on the wall. This team looks fine, by the way. It closed out 184. What I was looking at specifically with Team was that it's been just digesting here into the bottom or to the top of value on the 1 hour. But if there are other names that are going, and I see just other names, like the banks. I participate a little bit of J.P. Morgan today, and the semiconductors, which I really like right now. And I've been saying that the semiconductors, analog devices had a great quarter, and that kind of was the catalyst. Intel was the other one. I was trying to think of the other one that saw crazy call activity today. I mean, look at what this Intel did today. Up 4.6% today, and no, so I'm not in this one. I'm in applied materials. I'm also in NXPI, which a lot of these semi charts they kind of look similar. A lot of digestion and a break higher. So if I were in calls, like if I bought, let's say, June calls today, and I was playing that, then what I would do at the end of the day is, or some place during the day, is I would roll out of the June calls and go into either July or August calls, and meanwhile locking part of that profit away, but realizing that this thing could get up to 66. Right? I talked about this yesterday, right? And applied materials is up 2.5%. That's fine. It also didn't close on the highs like it did, but again, I'm locking in. I actually took all the profits in that I could out of the option trade, right? 543.85. This is just a fresh trade that I put on 2 days ago. And then I just decided to buy the stock. Why? Because I think this can, just like Intel, can take out this VPOC up here, but it may not do it in a straight line. So I've got to leave room and so forth if I like this trade. And basically that's how to play the game. Because no one knows what's going to happen. Yes, the sentiment is super hot. So again, we go through this process of making sure to take off trades here and there. ILMN, I mean, that is a textbook one of, because again, I get the question all the time. Hey, I'm not leaving trades on long enough. Da 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 da. I'm not letting my winners run. I'm locking in my losers, or I'm having problem with a couple of trades that aren't working, and I'm getting out of the winners way too quickly. Well, I can't give you another, like, a better example than what we've been doing in the trading room with ILMN. I mean, this thing was up another 4% after moving from 324, but you got to stay in it a little bit if you think this thing could go higher. Now, I don't know how far this is going to go. I'm hoping 392, but you got to be able to kind of this is a trade that I have rolled about 3 times, and it's just this is like the third or fourth trade that I've had that has worked. And what did I do this time? I just put some stock on, because the options are wide in this thing. But 1550, 1220. I shot a video about the same concept on I think on Sunday, and I sent it out, so you could find that on my Twitter feed. But that's the whole game, is to stay in the winners as long as you can. I talked about this again in the pre-market session, that I think everybody has a tendency, right? If you're watching this, if you're reading the tape and so forth, it's like you got to find the next one. You got to wait for the next option activity and so forth. The option activity is great, but there's other things, right? There's just regular stock volume that's going to bring the stock up too. So I think it becomes too much of like a drug, right? Oh, I got to find the next one. Find ones that continue to trend and stick with them, rather than kind of switching in and out and so forth. I do that better with options. Some people can really stick in options and get into a trade for, say, $3 and take it off for 10. I personally can't do that. What makes sense for me is when I'm in it for $3 and it goes up to 6, 7, I take it off and I lock some of that in. I personally cannot hold an option trade from $3 to $10 unless I'm selling stock to hedge against it a little bit, or doing or selling out of the money calls or something like that. But that's the whole name of the game, is to kind of let these stocks, if you see a good signal, stay with it. So I am still in ILMN. I'm still in applied materials. Like I said, Amazon, I took, and you got to pick and choose. Because again, right now with market sentiment as hot as it is, that's how I'm adjusting to this. Is I'm taking some trades out that like this one, right? What else did I? And Twitter, but I didn't even get a chance to talk about Twitter yet. But I'm still in some Twitter after I took three. I actually took three targets in this. Why did I take so many targets in this? Because the damn thing was up 7.8%. How many times do we see Twitter up this much, and it doesn't give it back? So I'm hoping that it will continue to maybe roll up to that 200-day moving average up there. But how many times has Twitter started to rally and then given it back? So that's why I was like, hey, I'll take another target. I'll take another target. But this was a real nice trade yesterday. We saw calls accumulate in this one. Literally, there's like 20 other names that I can mention that saw option activity. So again, it's getting it's it's like they say, it's getting a bit hot in here. uh, in terms of sentiment. Pfizer, which I like this company. If you look at what this company does, we saw calls go up in this thing about a week ago, and I played it for very short term. So again, I took a quick target at the end of the day, but I would like to be in this one because look at what they do. If you're not familiar, they provide integrated information management, electronic commerce systems and services. The company's solutions include transaction processing, electric bill payment. I mean, this is like really good, I think, for this environment. Now, a lot of these names have already moved decently, and it is a growth name. But it's worth a shot to see what they're doing. But again, I took a quick target here at the end of the day because I just know how much sentiment is running right now. Again, I got out of CrowdStrike, took out my Amazon. Yeah, and I took just a quick target there at the end of the day when things work very well right off the start. But I've got plenty of time in that trade. All right, guys. So that's it. I mean, again, trying to keep things as simple as possible and stick with it because you could have said, there's been people doubting all along the way this whole bounce that we've seen now that's been going on since the beginning of or the middle of March, every step of the way. Oh, we're going to go back and retest. Oh, we're going to go back and do this. Oh, we're going to do that. I mean, I don't have a signal that any of that is going to happen yet. So I will, when this QVPOC gets taken out, yes, I know we're running very, very hot when that virgin point of control gets taken out. Again, the gap was filled, so there'll be some adjustments to make. But there's no sell signal yet. And if you're worried that you are going to see a sell signal, then take more profits. So that's basically how you trade and how you manage your book a little bit. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, bright and early.